What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Burning Questions podcast by Fantasy Football Scout. Sorry we are a few minutes late. Thank you all very much for joining. It is Gameweek 10 and it feels like there is one burning question in particular which we will have a look at during today's stream, and that is, of course, the potential sale of Erling Haaland to buy a certain Mo Salah. One of us is very close to making those transfers this week, and one of us is probably going to go the other way and end up on Erling Haaland still. Before we get into all of that, Tom, how are you doing? Chelsea won at the weekend, but it looks like we're going to face a new manager bounce, Manchester United, next weekend, which is never what you want as a fan. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you, Harry. Hello, everyone. Yeah, it was gutted when I saw that Ten Hag was sacked, to be honest with you. It was typical, but yeah, FPL-wise, it was an alright weekend, I suppose. But yeah, it's plenty to talk about because I've got a massive decision. I'm very tempted to sell Haaland. I've only had him 2 weeks, but I've had enough already, I think.
Should never have bought him. You gave in to peer pressure. And now it's suddenly everyone's like, oh, well, those were never the fixtures you want Haaland for. You want him for the games where teams are going to give him space anyway. Those were never the fixtures for him. So, yes, we will have a look at all of that. Before we do, let's have a quick review of how our FPL weekends go. I've got your team up on screen first, Tom. 64 points for you. A few flags starting to appear in your team.
Yeah, it's Hospital FC at the minute, unfortunately, especially at the back. But yeah, going through it for the podcast, Flecken in goal, as per. Still haven't got a clean sheet this year from any goalkeeper. Rico Lewis, brought him in for Saliba. He got a clean sheet, so that was good. Aït-Nouri off the bench for Lewis Dunk. I wasn't really following the games, and I didn't actually realise that Lewis Dunk wasn't playing because he got injured in the warm-up.
I didn't realise. I saw the lineups, and then I was like, oh god, Lewis Dunk's going to get this clean sheet. I thought about buying him, and then I saw someone tweet at like 80 minutes, Brighton keeping a clean sheet with no Lewis Dunk, and I was like, what happened? And yeah, I didn't realise.
Yeah, I was very confused. So I was praying for the clean sheet, then I didn't realise he wasn't there, and then Aït-Nouri came off my bench and scored, so that was fun. Gabriel, yeah, we'll talk about Gabriel a little bit, I'm sure. Morgan Rogers, disappointing. Brennan Johnson, disappointing, but his underlyings were okay. He's probably got 2 more weeks left. Cole Palmer doing what Cole Palmer does, pretty standard. Embuemo, again, ridiculous. What a player. Watkins, a bit disappointing with Watkins because he had lots of chances and he also created a couple of big chances as well. Haaland, captain, yeah. Glad I didn't triple captain, but
yeah, you were pretty on it.
If you'd given me the numbers, though,
well, exactly.
If you told me he was getting 2.5 expected goals, I would have done it. So yeah, my reasoning was poor in the sense that I just didn't trust Man City. Like, he was posting low numbers, didn't have a shot against Wolves, so that's why I didn't do it. And then he goes and does that against Southampton. So, but you know,
yeah, we got away with it. We definitely got away with it. It does feel quite nice still having it though, because I didn't play it either.
Palmer's got to play Southampton,
and I just I feel like most people, like loads of people, have played it now, so I could just sort of play it when I want, and it will be like quite a nice. Like, I don't particularly think there's going to be a massive week where everyone goes, "Yeah, I'm playing my triple captain." Maybe it will happen, but it feels like so many people have played it that we're unlikely to get that. We'll see what happens with the doubles. I'm going to hope it snows a lot, basically. Hope it snows a lot. Hope a game gets called off, and then I'll play my triple captain in some random double game week. Is the hope?
Yeah,
but yeah.
I think I've got to use it on Palmer at some point.
You have to. I'm not going to let you get away with it.
No, yeah. And then Jackson to finish off. Just getting better and better. One of my favourite players. 9 points, 3 bonus, which was good. Didn't get a yellow card this week either, which always helps.
Yes, a few players approaching the yellow card suspension. Of course, Aït-Nouri, Semenyo, and I think Palmer's on 3 now.
I'm not worried about Palmer. I think he can control himself. But
Semenyo on 4, got booked for diving. Got booked for a foul. Got booked for a foul at the weekend, which he should have got the free kick for. Ryan Aït-Nouri is the one that is causing a bit of concern because he does like a booking. Is on 4 yellow cards, but that doesn't put me off buying Aït-Nouri at all. If you don't own him, the next 8 fixtures are really nice, and if he misses one of those, he misses one of them. Like if he had 7 good fixtures, you'd still buy him. But it's like if you have Gabriel, Dunk, Greaves, maybe Aït-Nouri is not the one you want to add in case he gets the suspension this weekend. But yes, a similar week for me this week. I got 75 though. David Raya 0, Gabriel 1. But Aït-Nouri came in for me this week in place of Trent Alexander-Arnold. 6 points for him. Was very pleased with that late goal. Rico Lewis with his 6 as well. They finally managed to keep a clean sheet. Brian Burmo 15. Mavididi 1. Oh, God, he got booked as well this week. He's not been the best transfer in. But at least he's cheap. Cole Palmer came in for me in place of Emil Smith-Rowe. Smith-Rowe did pick up an assist, but Cole Palmer with a 10. And it was just a priority for me to get to this team structure now with Saka and Palmer. I kept Saka. He did feature and he scored very early on in that game and picked up 2 bonus. So to have Saka's 9, have him in place along with Palmer, feels pretty nice. Chris Wood up front. I mean, this guy, absolute saving my season week by week. A 13.
You're getting a tattoo of him, Harry.
Yeah.
I think that's in order.
It used to be Solanke that kept me afloat, and now he is sinking me, and it is Chris Wood that is keeping me afloat. Of course, Solanke with 2, and then of course captain on Erling Haaland. I wanted to I know you posted a tweet, the scout posted a tweet, but also I want to read through a few players. So over the past 3 game weeks, since we've all started owning Dominic Solanke, he's had a total of 2 shots so far in those 3 game weeks. I want to name a few players to you who have had either the same or more shots than Dominic Solanke in the past 3 game weeks. The first one is Calvin Phillips at Ipswich, has had equal 2 shots. Next one is Lerma of Crystal Palace, also had 2 shots. Gravenberch of Liverpool with 2 shots. Christian Eriksen with 2 shots. Moises Caicedo with 2 shots. You move up the list into 3 shots. Tonali of Newcastle has had more shots than Dominic Solanke. Romero of Spurs, his teammate, has had more shots. Thomas Partey has had more shots than him. You move up, and I think you said he's 10th for XG amongst all Spurs players in the past 3 weeks. Dominic Solanke is on thin ice with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Basuma, Udogi, Werner, Romero, Porro have all had more expected goals than Solanke the last few weeks, awful. Which is insane.
I've got to get rid of him.
But then the last 2 games he had over 1, so I would sell him if I were you. We'll come on to that, but
if Son's back, I think it does boost Spurs a little bit, and naturally will boost him a little bit. Like, they didn't look good at the weekend at all without him.
He's out tonight, isn't he? He's injured tonight.
He said he's not going to feature at all. There's no guarantee. So the thing is with Son, they said at the weekend he could have played, and it was just left out as a precaution. They didn't want to risk making it worse. And now during this week, they've said, we hope he should be back for the weekend, but it's not then being guaranteed. So we'll see. We are still expecting him back, but we'll talk about some other forwards in a moment. But what we do want to talk about today is the big question of the week. It is that's not the graphic I want. I want this one. The potential sale of Erling Haaland to go and fund Mo Salah into your team. Before we get into these 2 in a little bit more detail, a couple of questions for you. First of all is, do you think there's a possibility that we can own both of these in our teams? Like, I know a lot of us are going Haaland to Salah, but people who have had both so far this season have done pretty well. Do you think both is the long-term answer, or do you think we have to pick one?
I think now with the fixtures that Haaland, that Saka and Palmer have got coming into, I'm not really sure why you would pick the 2 most expensive players when you have 2 players who are a bit cheaper who are matching them with better fixtures. So that's where I'd be at. I'd probably question why you want to do that. I mean, obviously they're both good players, but you can get the same points for less money. So I don't really see the point. And then we're probably going to want double Arsenal defence, I guess, from 12.
Yeah. Or at least one of them, yeah. I agree with you that it comes down to the fact that I want Palmer and Saka on top of these. And I don't think you can really go... I mean, you could go Haaland, Salah, Saka, or Haaland, Salah, Palmer, but that's a lot of money, and it does weaken the rest of your team. Like, I've seen people building Haaland, Salah, Saka drafts, and then they don't have Mbeumo, or they go Palmer as well, and there's no Mbeumo, there's no Arsenal defence, and it feels great at the moment suddenly in a short-term period, but it doesn't feel like a long-term play that's going to hold up. So I agree. I do feel like it's the conversation is between Haaland and Salah rather than Salah versus Palmer, Salah versus Saka, because I like those two a lot. It's just which of these two I decide to own. Now, there's a lot of people, and I've used transfers on it to swap between the two of them already quite a lot this season. The other thing is that a good use of transfers? Like, if I'm selling Haaland, do I think, yeah, that's fine, I'll buy him back in 4 weeks' time? Should we be using transfers on chopping between premiums, or should we set and forget our premiums and chop and change the other players? You feel like no Haaland is the long play, right?
I do, and I bought Haaland essentially for like obviously the Wolves and Southampton fixtures when Salah had Arsenal and Chelsea, and that's cost me points. Like Salah's got 22 points and Haaland's got 8. But was it the right decision? I mean, no one was saying it wasn't at the time, to be fair. Like, it was pretty... I think you said it was a good call. I think it was quite smart. Like, but, you look at James, Planet FPL, he held his nerve.
Yeah.
With no Haaland, and it's paid off. So, I think longer term, no Haaland's the play, and I do want him... I want him gone, basically, and I want Salah and Palmer and Saka, because it just does so much more. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's what
I know how you feel. Like, I suppose my situation's a little bit different because I've already got Palmer and Saka and Haaland. So it is just Haaland versus Salah for me. Like, the Haaland versus Salah doesn't get me Saka or Palmer because they're already in my team. Like, looking
but
at
it
the
gets
online,
you more though, doesn't it?
It does. Like, it'll probably get me like, I don't know. It doesn't get me that much more. Like, it's not that much more that I want. Because I've already got like double arse defence. Like, it might get me Trent, but I don't think I'd go Trent. I think I'd go Kanate now. I was reading a really interesting thread on him. It would give me a little bit more depth. The cheap midfielders are starting to be a little bit weaker, and the cheap forwards, it is another big reason why this transfer looks so appealing. Because the likes of Visa, because the likes of Cunha, because the likes of Chris Wood, because the likes of Jackson are starting to look like really good options. So suddenly, that's also part of the reason that people are starting to do that. If you didn't have that cheap forward to buy, the transfer would look less appealing than it does. But the cheap forwards are performing really, really well, and there are some great cheap forwards with some great fixtures coming up. So it is really tempting. It is really tempting is where I sit with it. The only thing I'd say is I look at EO when I play the game. And I like a little bit of stress-free weekends. And having no Haaland is a more stressful way to play the game. And unfortunately, that is something that has to be mentioned. If you have absolutely no emotional connection to this game, then yeah, fine. Maybe it's the better way to do it. But the ownership of Haaland every week is still going to be crazy high. And I just have to watch City games with no Haaland. And that just doesn't... That's that's more uncomfortable than having no Salah. But you don't seem to care about that. Does it impact you at all, knowing that Haaland will be like still 160% every week?
The thing is, it does. I don't think it impacts me emotionally as much because, like, on the weekend my priority is Chelsea, and that's kind of all that matters. But what I would say is I've done it before for 5 weeks, and in those weeks Haaland literally scored a hat trick, and my rank didn't move because I had Palmer, Saka, and Salah. No, I didn't have Saka. I had Watkins and Trent. You have so many more like tickets in the raffle, if that makes sense. Like, I think you're in a unique position because you have 3 premiums with Haaland, which I don't think many people do. Like, I have Haaland and Palmer, and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you want me to swap to Salah, Saka, and Palmer, then I think that's just so much better.
I suppose you have Watkins though.
Yes,
so...
and that's getting tricky now because he's got trickier fixtures. But I think the thing is, like, if you have a setup where you have 3 other premiums, the Haaland doesn't really hurt you. The only way it hurts you is if only Haaland scores, and there will be a week like that for sure. But the flip side is the gains are so big when Haaland blanks and the others go off.
I am just adding a poll into the chat of Haaland in or Haaland out. Let's see what people have got to say in the YouTube chat. So yeah,
the captaincy is so big, right?
Captaincy decides it. Captaincy is the complete
you look
thing.
Going forward, Palmer and Saka's captaincy rotation is unbelievably good. So,
yeah. But then I trust Haaland as a captain more than I trust those two.
See, that's probably where we differ, because I don't. I see Palmer and Salah on exactly the same level, if not like, well, over the last years, Palmer's got more points than Haaland. So, like, the thing with Haaland though, when's the next plum home game that you desperately want him? For me, it's 18 against Everton. Like,
yeah, but like you look at the points where the games where he's got points. I suppose he's home to Ipswich, away at West Ham. Like, he still has the ability in games like away at Bournemouth, away at Brighton, at home to Spurs to do very good. Like, these teams will give him chances. So
yeah, he's going to get points, but it's the thing, like, he's so much more expensive than the others, and Palmer and Salah are literally matching him or being better. So
yeah. I wouldn't own Haaland if it was at the expense of Palmer and Saka, but I suppose I'm in a unique situation where that's not the decision I'm making. Like, if selling Haaland got me Salah and Saka, then I would sell Haaland, I think. But selling Haaland doesn't get me that. The only real thing it gets me is Salah.
But then you compare those fixtures and you got Brighton at home, Southampton, Fulham at home, Leicester. Like, and for Salah, I think, like, this week Salah's the best captain. Do you agree? Without Lewis Dunk?
Maybe.
Okay,
yeah,
fair enough. If you're not as sure, then fair enough. But for me,
I think it's really close.
Captain.
Really close. Like, as we were talking about, Haaland's record City's record against Bournemouth is really, really good. They've scored 15 goals in the last 4 games against Bournemouth. Like, they do have a really good record against them. Don't get me wrong, I think Salah is a great captaincy shout this week. Haaland is either going to be my captain or I'm going to sell him this week. Like, it's such a bizarre situation to be in with him. Like, I'm either going to score double points or I'm going to be hit.
Yeah.
I'm either going to have +2 or effectively -2 Haaland in my team this week. There's no other situation that's going to put me in. Now, Haaland will haul when De Bruyne is back, but that's not likely to be after the international break. So that's still 2 game weeks to go between now and then. And if you're saying, well, he's only going to perform when De Bruyne's back, then I would sell him, because that's not good enough for me. I need him to be able to perform no matter who's on the pitch. I don't want him to be relying on other people. I do agree that no De Bruyne is having an impact on that Manchester City team. Now, whether Foden coming in will start to create more chances, it did at Southampton the weekend. Having Savio and Foden creating chances for Haaland did make things better, but yeah, I find it really, really difficult to call. Basically doing a whole pod on something I don't know the answer to. But no one knows the answer. No one knows the answer.
I don't know. I don't want this to sound like arrogant or something, but, like, do you not think the answer is quite clearly not Haaland? Like, to get the 3 and a big defence and, like, lots of good strikers. Do you not?
Yeah, so at the moment, while the cheap strikers are performing really well, that absolutely looks like the good way to go. But you have to be realistic that at some point, Chris Wood might not score 2 goals or score every week. At some point, like, Matheus Cunha might not be as good an asset as he looks on paper at the moment. But the cheap forwards do make it look like it is a good way to go. Upgrading the defence, yeah, maybe the premium defenders are worth it, but they haven't massively been worth it so far this season. And you look at the returns he got over the first 4 weeks of 7, 17, 17, 13. And I know it's possible to do well without him. But, like, that's a lot you're fighting against. He's not going to score hat-tricks every week, but not having him, and if he does do that, you're fighting against a lot. But you have more tools. You have more weapons in that fight, to extend the analogy, because, like, you look in those first 3 weeks, again, Salah got more points, Palmer got a massive haul, and Saka did what Saka does. And then you can get a couple of extra upgrades elsewhere. Yeah. Maybe it scares me too much.
I mean, you're definitely coming around to it. You told me a few weeks ago you're just going to probably keep Haaland all year.
Well, I said this. I said I wanted to own Palmer and Saka, and it's one of Haaland or Salah, and I would and I don't plan on selling Haaland. And my thought process is still the same. It's Haaland, it's Saka and Palmer, and one of the two. I feel slightly more comfortable with selling Haaland now than I was before. Like, I don't mind it over a long period of time. It's just any specific week you could sell him, and that might be the week that he goes off. No specific week feels like a good week to sell Haaland. That's where I feel...
I think Cunha is a massive thing, though. Like, I know you said we've got some Cunha stuff. Did you?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is like... He's a reliable pick, and he is coming into some really good fixtures, which makes it a lot more palatable, I think.
Yeah, so what we've got up on screen now is forwards so far this season ranked by baseline bonus points. So effectively what they're doing before they start scoring goals or start getting assists. So what they're doing as a baseline of the bonus point system. Matheus Cunha is top by 25 baseline so far this season. The second highest is Iliman Ndiaye with 85. Cunha has 111. You have Haaland on 70, Strand Larsen, the other Wolves forward, on 58. Like, he doesn't come close to anyone else. And the reason this is really important is his goals are worth more than 4. When he scores, he gets bonus as a result. We saw it at the weekend. He scored once. And if no one else is getting more than 1 return in that game, it almost certainly locks Cunha into 3 bonus, because he's creating chances, he's crossing the ball, he's having very clinical shots, he's very involved in what Wolves do. He's had, almost 4 XGIs so far this season, which again is right up there with some of the best players that we've got on this list. We expect him to be on penalties. There is a real boost for the sale of Haaland when you look at a forward that looks like this and the fixtures that they've got coming up. There is just a question from Sally, isn't Cunha injured? So the only thing on that is apparently there was an open training session and he had ice on his knees during the training session and he was sat on the bench. He didn't do all of it and had ice on his knees. The fact that it was on both knees makes me think that it's absolutely nothing. Like, there's no way he's injured both knees in the same training session. Like, if he had ice on his knee or his ankle, then maybe I'd be slightly concerned. But I don't. Yeah, I mean, that's not something that concerns me.
I think the amount of times that footballers have treatment, that footballers miss days, footballers rest. If we actually knew, FPL managers would have a heart attack, because footballers are never 100% fit when they play football. That's just the name of the game. And yeah, obviously, don't make the move until Friday if you're worried. But
the issue with that is, like, if you are doing the move, you're very much may lose 0.1, 0.2, even more by the time Friday comes around. Cunha may well rise in price tonight. Solanke, for example, may drop in price tonight. Salah probably won't. So if you're doing Solanke to Cunha, you may well lose 0.2 million by the time Friday comes around, which is a concern. Like, I don't love the idea of losing 0.2 just to hear a press conference, but maybe it's what I have to do. Is Cunha the number 1 forward to buy in the game at the moment? If you were selling Haaland, and let's say you had money let's say you could buy any forward, but you had to sell Haaland, would Cunha be number 1?
I think he is number 1, yeah. And just another thing to throw in to your sort of speech there is the fixtures that he's had. They've had the worst fixtures in the league, and he's still putting up these numbers.
Yeah.
Which is obviously very impressive. I'll shout out Nicholas Jackson as well. I think if that Arsenal game wasn't there, I think he would be really, really close to Cunha. Obviously, he's a bit more expensive. Like, he is so involved. He's got goals, assists. He's nailed, and like, his numbers are. Is he second to Haaland for XG? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he's got 6.3. Yeah, seconds.
Yeah, and he scored 6 goals, so he's clinical.
Well, this is the other thing for me. Part of the reason I consider selling Haaland is because I want Jackson. Where have we got to in the world that I'm considering selling Haaland because I want Jackson? Because if I sell Solanke to Cunha, I then can't get Jackson because I've got Chris Wood, right? And Chris Wood is going absolutely nowhere ever at the moment. And I have no plans on selling him even when the fixtures get more difficult. I will rotate him in and out of my team. That's absolutely fine. So the only way for me to get Jackson into my team is to sell Haaland. And that's why I'm like, well, maybe I should sell Haaland. But that seems like a crazy place to be.
But it's the combo, isn't it? It's Jackson and Salah or Haaland and...
Well, exactly like Rodgers.
Yeah, so that I think Salah and Jackson is better by far. So...
Yeah.
I mean, I had Jackson since like Gameweek 2 because I've always had a soft spot for him, probably a bit biased. But he is really coming good now. And he is a genuine like force as strikers go. Yeah. He's improved a lot, and people should swap their mindset, I think. Like, you look at his XGI numbers, like 0.6, 0.5, 1.4, 0.8, 1.3. Like, he gets loads of chances, and he's starting to take them. So, yeah, I think Cunha is probably the best with the fixtures and the bonus, and the penalties, I guess, is a plus on Jackson, and he's cheaper, but...
And 90 minutes.
Yes.
There have been a lot of late goals this season, and I do think there's something to be said about buying a player who's on the pitch to score those goals when it's late on. Like that Cunha goal at the weekend just highlights it.
Yeah.
You buy a striker that doesn't play 90 and you get a 2-pointer in that situation, but Cunha gets 9 because he's on the pitch to score that goal. And there have been lots of late goals. We've seen it quite a lot this season. So I do think there is something to be said for picking players, particularly going into Christmas, who you know are going to play 90 every week. Like your Brian and Mbumo, even when the fixtures get worse. Like, I see people having plans to sell Mbumo when their fixtures get harder. And I'm like, I don't think I ever will. I just think this guy in Brentford want to score 4 goals against whoever they're playing, even if they concede 4. Like, even when they get to game week 14 and they go Villa away, Newcastle at home, Chelsea away, Forest at home, Brighton away,
those
Arsenal
aren't bad
home.
fixtures.
Like, I just think I'll hold him.
Chelsea don't keep clean sheets. Villa don't keep clean sheets. Neither do Newcastle.
No. And then Forest at home, like that's fine. He's up
Arsenal,
to 7
City, Liverpool. You might sell, but that's in months. That's months away.
But all 3 of those games are at home.
Yeah.
And then in between them, he's got Southampton away, Palace away, and if you sell him, he's like he's gone up 0.7 million since I bought him.
Yeah.
So I find him really difficult to sell as well. So he's 90 minutes, Palmer's 90 minutes, Saka's 90 minutes, Salah is pretty much 90 minutes at the moment. So, and Cunha is as well. You don't get that with Jackson, which is why Cunha is above Jackson for me. Are there any other forwards you like? There's a lot of talk about Johan Visa this week. Brentford being very good. He came back in, got 1 goal and an assist, and then given the second goal after the end of the point scoring for FPL.
Yeah,
he is another one.
Yeah, Welbeck again. Welbeck keeps going. Jimenez, you can't really argue with Jimenez at the minute. Although a few blanks for Jimenez, you do kind of wonder whether it'll swap over again. Like
my only thing with Jimenez is I think Fulham are great, but I see them winning games by scoring 1 or 2 goals.
Yeah.
I see Brentford, like they've scored 4 here. They scored 5 against Wolves. They scored. Like they're scoring against Spurs, they're scoring against City, they scored 3 against Southampton, they scored twice against Palace. Like I feel like the ceiling for Visa is higher than the ceiling for Jimenez at the moment. Now Jimenez brings penalties, which you don't get with Visa, but you get more minutes with Visa than you do with Jimenez. So, well, we expect Jimenez to be on penalties now that Andreas missed his last one. So the other one is Welbeck. The next 2 are really difficult. They play Liverpool and City in the next 2. But from game week 12, their fixtures are really, really good. And that's why you've got Dunk, for example.
Yes. Yeah, and I wanted to shout out Mateta as well. He was someone that I was considering a little bit because I'm looking to sell Watkins next week to give me Saka money for 12. And Mateta goes into Fulham at home. And they've got, Ipswich, Newcastle, Villa... Not awful, and it seems like after they finally won a game and he scored, I can't imagine he's going to be dropped.
No, it just seems like a lot of money for him at the moment, though. Like I look at Welbeck, right? They go Bournemouth away, Southampton at home, Fulham, Leicester, Palace, West Ham, Brentford, Villa, Arsenal, but then it continues like Ipswich United, Everton. Like fixtures for them, I just think he's too expensive to buy at the moment. Mateta, for me, it's
fair.
Cunha,
Haaland,
Jackson.
Can I shout out Haaland just with the fixtures? Because if it was any other player, you'd just be saying the fixtures were good. So I do have to shout him out. From next week, Leicester, Ipswich, Everton for Rasmus Haaland. if you want a differential, it could be worse.
If you want a differential, I don't mind it, but I don't particularly at the moment. I do want to see what that new Manchester United team looks like exactly before we go and buy them. I have no doubt that Rasmus Højlund will be in that lineup, but let's see on them first. I think I can understand with the fixtures why people do want to dive in for a new manager bounce, but
Delap, we should probably say Delap as well, was benched on the weekend but did score.
It was so bizarre that. I'm so shocked to see him on the bench. He's been so good for them.
He said it was just he's young, he's played a lot, sort of thing.
So he should be back in.
Yeah,
fine. But that's a concern knowing that you've got it. It does feel like Haaland, if you want Haaland, Jackson, Cunha, Chris Wood, Welbeck.
Visser, did you say Visser?
Oh, Visser was the one I missed.
I mean, we should also shout out Watkins. Like, he is still really good.
Yeah. They're coming into slightly more difficult fixtures now, and we have seen Champions League fatigue for that Villa team.
Yeah, and the thing, again, shout out Planet FPL Pod, between the Watkins' good fixtures, I think,
is Champions League.
Brentford, Southampton at home. They've got a big Champions League game. I think that's Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday.
So Brentford at home is Wednesday, Southampton at home is Saturday, then they play Champions League midweek after them.
That screams Duran, Southampton at home, doesn't it?
It does a little bit. But just generally, they have like the two games after their Champions League was Bournemouth at home, they drew 1-1, and Man United at home where they drew 0-0 as well.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think that's a coincidence.
And just finally, Darwin, Jota out for 3 weeks.
Yes, so there is a little bit of love for Darwin Núñez at the moment.
Not from me, but yeah, it's not the worst thing, perhaps.
I mean, I don't buy Darwin over Cunha.
No, because it's a transfer in 3 weeks.
It's a transfer in 3 weeks, and I don't necessarily think Darwin outscores Cunha in those 3 games. I don't think he necessarily outscores a Chris Wood in those 3 games. So I don't know. It feels like you're buying Darwin because you can't buy Salah.
Or you just like that's your thing. Like you love.
Yeah, if you love Darwin,
the risk, I guess,
and you love Darwin, but it feels like you're buying him because you. Like if you've got Salah, anyone who's got Salah is not buying Darwin this week.
No,
you're buying him.
I think we agree. I think if I sell Haaland, I'll be getting Cunha. I think that's the same with you, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it'll be Haaland to Cunha or Solanke to Cunha probably for me this week. So let's put that into a little bit of perspective with our teams. We do feel like we're on a little bit of different sides of the equation. Tom, I've got your team up on screen at the moment. I'll read it out for the people on podcast. Flecken in goal, Rico Lewis, Aït-Nouri, Gabriel with Dunk and Greaves on the bench. Brian Mbumo, Johnson, Palmer, Rodgers, Haaland, Jackson, Watkins with Semenyo on the bench. Do you have your one transfer?
Unfortunately, yes. One transfer. I have some money in the bank, so 1.2 there. Yeah, defensively it's a bit of a nightmare. Obviously, Greaves is definitely out. Dunk is definitely out. I know he's only orange flag, but the Athletic saying he's out for 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah. Not
that it would be any use anyway, but and then Gabriel. Good news on Gabriel. It seems like there's a fair chance he'll be back.
Can I just say something? Everyone's saying let's buy Salah this week because Liverpool are playing Brighton without Dunk. Haaland's playing Brighton without Dunk next weekend. It's the same conversation, isn't it? And actually, I think it impacts Haaland more because Haaland plays through the middle, whereas Salah plays out on the wing. But anyway.
Yeah, so we'll worry about that next week. But yeah, so I guess if Gabriel was confirmed out, I need a defender basically, and I would probably go to Trent, Gabriel to Trent. I could do that. I did, but again, is that even worth it? Maybe not.
Would you not like? So my question is, so with the moves that you want to do, so if Gabriel was out, would you not sell Haaland then? Or would you do it for a minus 8? It would be a
minus 8. Yeah, I think that's getting a little bit silly. But if Gabriel's fit, we'll start with Gabriel's fit, then I can do Haaland to Cunha and Semenyo to Salah. And at which point I wouldn't be playing Rodgers. Yeah, I would, yeah. I think Morgan Rodgers is great. It gives me more money as well. And then, long-term-ish plan is then next week sell Watkins to a cheap striker. Then game week 12, sell Brennan Johnson to Bukayo Saka.
Yeah.
And then as and when Flecken... I mean, the thing with Flecken, right, he's got Leicester at home in 13. And it's like, I want him to be rare, basically, at some point.
Yeah.
Probably game week 14. So money-wise, I don't think it's actually that tight, to be fair. So then there is the option of moving Gabriel to Gavardiol. Porro for 2 weeks, maybe. I don't think that's the worst thing.
Porro's not worth the money.
For 2 weeks, you don't think I could get a goal? Ipswich at home.
But why are you
before
moving
going
him
back?
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it for 2 weeks, if I'm honest. I just don't think Porro, while they're playing Maddison Kulusevski together, is a player I will ever consider. It's just his goal threat is so low when they play with those 2-8s together. And it feels like one of those things where the data is slightly slow to pick up on. Like, his predicted points are still really good because historically he's been a great pick. But in those positions, I don't see it. I would buy a few of... So how much have you got in the bank? 1.2?
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Why?
Because you can't do Greaves to Konate.
Yeah, but I don't want that structure long term anyway, I think.
Interesting, because that's exactly the structure that I quite like. I have the same defence, apart from I have Mikalenko in place of Dunk, and I really fancy Greaves to Konate to give me... I just feel like I won't need a defensive transfer for quite a while with a 5-man defence that includes City, Liverpool and Arsenal. But you're 0.1 short of it.
Sadly. Konate 5.3?
Yeah.
Why?
I know.
Yeah, that's annoying, actually. Yeah, that's... Yeah. And... Yeah, it'll be tricky. If Gabriel's out, it gets tricky, to be honest with you.
I mean, you could do that for -8.
What, Trent? Well, yeah, I suppose the additional hit is kind of irrelevant because I will not have a player. So it's like...
Haaland to Cunha, Semenyo to Salah, and Greaves to Konate.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I would probably do that, to be fair.
I just quite like the long term of that 5-man defence.
And budget-wise, I can still do all my Saka rare moves as well.
Yeah.
The thing with Konate is, though, like, he does get injured quite regularly.
Yeah, I know, but they've, like... At some point, these players might not get injured, right?
That's true. Yes, fair point.
But I know there's a feeling that bringing in a player, like, that is injury-prone, it doesn't feel great. But if that happens, then you just buy Kwanzaa. For 4 points.
Justice for Kwanzaa. The first choice and pushed away after 45 minutes.
Yeah, he's never to be seen again. How much is Kwanzaa now? He's 4 million.
Yeah.
He's all the way down to 4 million. The thing is, I want to buy Konate just so that someone can jinx him and he gets injured and we can all buy Kwanzaa at 4 million. That's what you'll do in a few weeks. Greaves to Kwanzaa.
Yeah.
Do Liverpool play tonight?
Yeah, everyone's playing. All the big teams playing tonight, I think.
Yeah, that's got a Kwanzaa start written all over it. That does.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's basically... So I'll ask you straight up. Do you think Salah captain...
I don't think it's worth a hit.
Cunha against Haaland captain and Rodgers?
I would say it's not worth a hit, but then Rodgers away at Spurs. But then Spurs are not very good either.
At the end of the day, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to do it this week or next week.
Oh, if you're going to do it, then I just get it done.
That's what I want, so I don't really see... And this week, Salah is the best... In my head, Salah's the best captain this week.
Yeah, but if you're going to do it, like, let's say you don't do it this week. You're not doing it next week. Like, game week 11 is not the week to do it.
But then Cunha's gone, that's the thing. Then Cunha, Palace, Southampton, the best 2 fixtures.
Why can't you just do Watkins to Cunha?
This week?
Yeah. And then do Haaland to someone else in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Just because, like, next week, in game week 11, Rodgers has... Rodgers, they've got Liverpool next week, fine, but...
Yeah, that's another thing. It's the whole Semenyo-Rodgers thing. It doesn't look great.
I don't mind Semenyo away at Brentford next week. I'm quite excited for Semenyo's good fixtures.
Yeah.
But he is on 4 yellow cards.
I mean, yeah, that's it. Yeah, maybe I need to give more thought Rodgers against Semenyo. I kind of just took that as obvious.
I don't know. The upcoming fixtures, like, I've held Semenyo and I plan on holding him, but I've got Mavididi, so I've got a ready-made midfielder I want to sell. Like, Mavididi makes this decision really, really easy for me if I decide to make the move. That's part of the other reason when I look at my team, let me get my team up, that I am less inclined to make the move this week, because I've got Mavididi away at Ipswich and he's the one that would go. Maybe that shouldn't stop me, because it's still like Mavididi who's done nothing for me. But part of me wonders if this isn't the week to do it. So I've got Raya in goal. I've got Aït-Nouri, Gabriel and Lewis. And I've got Mykolenko away at Southampton on the bench for Gabriel if he doesn't play. I think Gabriel I will start. Then we've got Mbeumo, Saka, Mavididi, Palmer, Wood, Haaland, Slanky. We are both in the big dilemma where we can do the transfer that everyone is considering this week, and that is the Haaland to Salah move. The question is in the chat as well. 56% Haaland in, 44% Haaland out. It's really, really close for what people are wanting to do, and we fall either side of the debate at the moment. I do think there is a lot of people saying, oh, well, Dunk's out, let's buy Salah against Brighton, forgetting that Haaland plays them next week and he will still be out. It's something to have a reminder of. So, yeah.
I think it's just Cunha for me. Like, I just don't want to miss Cunha for the next two, because I think he's really good.
But you could sell Watkins for him. Like, Watkins has got Spurs away, Liverpool away.
Maybe I'd just save it and do that next week then. Because do I really want to sell Ollie Watkins before Tottenham Hotspur?
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
So for people on podcast, my two transfer options this week are, well, three. I could roll and keep Slanky. I could do Slanky to Cunha. I think the chance of me rolling is about 5%. So Slanky to Cunha, or Haaland to Cunha, Mavididi to Salah.
Haaland to Cunha, Mavididi. And that's for free?
That's for free.
I would have, if I was you, I'd have already done that by now.
Yeah, but
the fact is, for a hit, for me is different, but I don't see how you can lose massively on that. Like,
you watch Mavididi get his goal because Ipswich have
that's such a low percentage.
They have about one fit defender available, and I will never forgive myself. Like, what will hurt me more? Not making the Salah move and Salah scoring, or me selling Mavididi and Mavididi scoring. Me selling Mavididi and him scoring will hurt me 10 times more than if Salah scores this week.
But Mavididi though, like,
he might not even start.
Yeah, he came off on 67, right? And Cooper kind of got criticised for playing all the attackers, didn't he?
Yeah.
Was it Buonanotte, Fatua and Mavididi? Yeah. One of them is coming out this week, you would have thought.
Against Ipswich though, isn't this the fixture they all need to play? I don't know.
Yeah, but you could have said Forest. Like, they got battered by Forest.
And if I keep Solanke, let's say I do the Haaland move, those people asking in the chat, Solanke would get Villa at home, Ipswich at home, and then I'd sell him to Jackson in 12. So...
Sorry, you do Solanke to Cunha.
I would do Solanke to Jackson in 12 if I sell Haaland.
Him.
Yeah. So... Yeah,
I mean that move's obvious, I think.
Yeah, but if I keep Haaland, then I do Slanky to Cunha, and I can't get Jackson. That's the thing.
But you could get rid of Haaland next week or in 12, couldn't you?
Yeah, I could delay it absolutely.
Why does Harry love Mavididi?
It's a good question
from the chat.
It's a really good question, and one I don't really know the answer to. I bought him as a bit of a differential. It hasn't paid off at all, but I bought him for 4 weeks, and this is the 4th week, and it's Ipswich away, and they have one fit defender. So part of me does wonder. I think they're into their 4th choice right back after Clark got sent off for the weekend. So that's why I wonder. That's why I am inclined to keep him for one more week. But
maybe they're going to wheel Greaves out on a wheelchair, and I'll be saved.
Maybe. So. You feel pretty confident that you're going to do it, but you need to wait on news for Gabriel. I don't need to wait on any news.
Although you suggesting the Watkins swap has made me think. Because then I kind of get Cunha. I feel like this is driven by getting Cunha more than getting Salah, to be quite honest. Like, I will definitely not have Haaland in Gameweek 12. I can promise everyone watching that, because I want Saka full stop, and that's just what I think is best. But For the next two, is there a case like Haaland? As you said, like no dunk next week as well. I suppose it's kind of exactly the same.
Mm.
And next week, what's better, Salah at home to Villa or Haaland away at Brighton?
Well, Salah will be playing Villa just after they've played Champions League again. That's the only other thing to add in there. Like, naturally, I'd probably say Haaland against a dunkless Brighton, but Aston Villa have Champions League midweek. It is away at Club Brugge, though, so maybe there's rotation there, but yeah.
What's Haaland doing in between that? Has he got like an easy game that he might not play?
Let me have a look. Aston Villa do play tonight. They've got Sporting Lisbon. Now managerless Sporting Lisbon next midweek.
At home?
Away.
Tricky.
Yeah. So there is still more to answer. Let's do a few questions in the chat. Before we do, if you could please drop a like on the stream, subscribe if you are new. If you are listening on podcast, rate us 5 stars. We are about 4,500 subscribers away from 100,000 on the Fantasy Football Scout channel. So if you want to support us, get there. That would be fantastic. A lot of questions and a lot of people are just deciding on Cunha, etc. this week. So yeah, I think one person we haven't massively spoken about is Trent. Trent is 7 million. Do you think he's worth 7 million? Based on what you've seen, it feels slightly reserved recently, but that they have had Arsenal and Chelsea, and maybe that's a factor of it. How do you feel on Trent for 7 million?
I think if you go without Haaland, he's very gettable, isn't he? Like my team that has Raya, Palmer, Saka, and Salah, I can get Trent for Gabriel if I want to. So I think he's achievable, and I wouldn't worry too much about the price if you're not having Haaland. So
the thing with selling Gabriel, though, is all it takes is Gabriel to score, and suddenly it doesn't look like a very good move.
Yes, that's true. I would have Raya, but yeah, I guess with Trent, like he was the top scoring defender. Well, he still has the most points apart from Van Dijk.
Yeah.
And he's blanked 3 times in the last 4. And he's still underperforming. His expected goal involvement so far this year is 3.
Yeah.
And he's only got 1 assist.
Yeah.
So you could say that something big is coming.
Yeah.
And they are the best defence for clean sheets.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they're the best defence?
I'd still back Arsenal as the best defence, but I think they're a close second. Close second. Would I buy Visa or Wood or Cunha this week? How would we rank those 3 to buy this week?
Cunha, Visa, Wood. I think Visa's next 4, you can't really ignore it. I think if you want Visa, I think you go now for the next 4 and then get the double up with Mbomo. I think even you would have to agree with that, maybe.
I think I probably... This is the thing, and this is why Chris Wood's ownership is still only at 17.5%. It's because every week there looks like a slightly more appealing forward to buy. There's never been a real week where you go, this is the week you need to buy Chris Wood. But every week he is more consistent than the others. I would probably put Visa above Wood, but I don't think there's that much in it. Like you say, the next 4, he has West Ham at home, Newcastle at home, Ipswich at home in that 4. Like, yes, Arsenal away as well. Right, great. If you have someone you can bench for him, then that's fine. Yeah, I probably would go.
Do you think Brentford score more though
than Forest? Yes, but there are more players in Brentford's team that will score than in
Fair point, yeah.
But I probably would go him over Chris Wood.
But we think Cunha is the best.
Yes. Would you sell Dominic Calvert-Lewin this week?
Yes.
Yeah.
This happens in FPL. Like you get drawn in by the next fixture, and so what? Like he scores 1 goal this week. He's still blanked like 4 out of 5 weeks. He's still been an awful pick. Just get rid of it and
sounds
move
like
on to something
Mavadidi.
better.
Literally, it's the same.
That assist with a yellow card for Mavadidi. Those 4 points this week are not gonna make up for the last 4 weeks.
He's going on the thumbnail next week if he gets a return. Son. So the update on Son is he's unlikely to feature tonight, but is still expected back for Aston Villa at the weekend. We will have to wait and see what happens in the press conference on Friday. Ange's normally pretty honest, but we are expecting him back for Aston Villa at the weekend. Any more questions, please do drop them in the chat. Dominic Solanke likely to drop and Cunha likely to rise. Would you sell Solanke to Cunha? Yes.
The thing with Son, we should just say is like even in game week 8, he came off on 69 minutes. So
Yeah.
you would expect an early sub this weekend, I would assume, if he plays.
And then maybe against Ipswich as well.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't buy Son, but I would keep him.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll have to see what Ange says.
How do you feel on the other Spurs mids? So we've got Maddison, Kulusevski and Brennan Johnson.
I think Madison's a no-go because he's getting hooked. He's getting early subs. Whereas Brennan Johnson's been actually really unlucky. He hit the post the other week. I think he still had the highest XG of Spurs players this weekend.
Yeah.
Like his numbers have been exactly the same. Like he just hasn't been scoring. I keep the faith. His numbers are good and he's got 2 good fixtures.
Yeah. I definitely would keep Johnson.
He's still the best for me.
Yeah. Maddison I'd sell if you want to go to Salah, Saka, Palmer or Mbeumo. If not, I'd probably keep him. There aren't loads of good midfielders to buy this week. A lot of them have not got great fixtures. Loads of the top 8 are playing against each other. I think it's all of the top 10 are playing against each other this week. So there's a lot of, or last year's top 10 or whatever it is, however you want to draw the goal.
Madwake.
Yeah.
What about Sharda? He scored last night. Oh, he didn't even start against Ipswich before he started. Yeah. No. We got a super chat.
I do wonder about, just on the Chelsea mids, about them when game week 12 comes around. But
Neto looks good, doesn't he?
Neto's looked really good. Neto would be the one I'd buy, I think.
But and he's starting this weekend because Sancho can't play against Man United.
Yeah, but I don't think I would buy them. I think I'd go Jackson.
Yeah, for sure.
Foden, Calvert-Lewin, Havertz to Palmer, Wood, Cunha for a -4. So Foden to Palmer, Calvert-Lewin to Chris Wood, and Havertz to Cunha for a hit.
Do you need the Calvert? I know I just told anyone to sell Calvert-Lewin, but for a hit, can you just do that without a hit?
Well, I was about to say, is Foden to Palmer worth a hit this week?
I think so. I think you just get it done. But you could do that without a hit though, by keeping DCL.
Yeah, but you could do any of these. So Havertz to Cunha, you do because you need the money, right?
Yeah.
And then are DCL to Wood or Foden to Palmer worth a hit? Which is a better transfer out of those two?
No, but isn't it 3 moves for a -4? So presumably there's...
Yeah, but you could drop either of those first 2 transfers. So you could do DCL to Wood, Havertz to Cunha for free if you wanted to. And not do Foden to Palmer until next week.
I would get Palmer, absolutely. 100%. I think Foden, you can keep dreaming about Foden, but the bottom line is he's just not as good. He doesn't get as many points and he doesn't play as many minutes. I just think people on Foden, it's like, when is enough? You just keeping it, just dreaming of that massive haul that no one's got. Meanwhile, Palmer just keeps scoring points every week.
Yeah. I think I would do 2 of the moves and do the next one for free next week. If you've got other stuff you want to do in your team next week, then I'd probably do them all for a hit and just take the free transfer next week and do something else. But if you don't have other stuff you want to fix, I would do 2 of the 3. Havertz to Cunha. And I'd be tempted to give Foden this weekend away at Bournemouth and then sell him to Palmer. Or If it's going to get priced out, then do it because Palmer's going to go up and Foden's probably going to go down. But yeah.
The thing with Foden, though, is next week you're probably not going to do it because Palmer's got Arsenal, and then you're just stuck with Foden, and it's I don't know. I just don't really get very high on Foden because it just always tends to end in disappointment.
Yeah. Would you keep Jamie Vardy if you had him? Away at Ipswich this week, I probably would.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a sell, I don't think.
I mean, if you maybe have 3 or 4 moves and you can get to Cunha for free, then it's probably okay.
You'll probably just be happy that you've got him.
Yeah. And next week you're going to want to... Cunha Southampton at home next week is going to be people who haven't got Haaland talking about captaining Cunha next week.
Right. I think that is all for the questions in the chat. We've discussed Haaland to Salah. We will see this time next week. I'm pretty sure Tom might not have it because he might have to deal with Gabriel. I might have Salah in my team this time next week. I think it's unlikely, but every time I talk to someone, I can't give them a solid reason of why not to do it. Have I ever taken a hit? Not very many. Last year I took a few, but I took a hit to buy a Luton goalkeeper last year. So yes, occasionally I do exciting things. Not very often though. Not very often. Anyone
There's 3 points between us as well.
Yeah, it's close.
Very close.
Andy got a green arrow this week. I was about to say Andy got a red arrow. That's why I decided not to come on. But he did get a green arrow this week. He'll be back. He is travelling somewhere near and far again this week, so he'll be back at some point. But he did get a green arrow, so he's not just skiving because he got a red arrow. Anyway, thank you all very much for joining. Please drop a like on the stream before you go. Rate us 5-star if you're on podcast. Subscribe to the channel. Let's hope Chelsea don't get beaten by a new manager bounce Manchester United. Let's hope that Mateus Cunha scores lots this weekend once we all buy them. Thank you for joining me, Tom.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Good luck for Game Week 10.
And we'll see you next week.